Hi everyone, I'm Helen. This is the Forge Community Church, and again it's Think Differently Thursday. And I've got with me today my friend Gill. Hi Gill.
Hi Helen.
How are you?
How are you today?
I'm good.
I'm
Good.
fine, thank you.
Good. Do you want to just I've known you for a very long time, Gill, but
Long
do
time, yes.
you want to just briefly introduce yourself?
Yes, okay. I'm Gill Fenning and I live in Wycombe-Skeeth, a very big village. And yes, I've been part of the Forge Community Church ever since we started. So
Wow.
there we go.
Oh, I so want to ask you about that as well. But first of all, you're a Fenning, and that's quite a well-known name here in Suffolk, well, particularly around churches, I think. Was Suffolk always home for you, or have you come to Suffolk at some point?
Oh no, yes, I came to Suffolk. I come from Hereford in the West Country, and I met Wyn, my husband, when I was 18 at a Christian conference in Monkton Combe School in Bath.
Ah.
So
did
we courted using the old-fashioned language.
And did you do like writing letters? And so you?
Yes, I've still got all the letters.
Oh, Gill, I love that. Oh, and then eventually.
I've lost the picture. 3 years while I was at college, and can you still hear me?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Oh yes, and sorry about that.
That's okay.
and married him when I was 21.
Wow. And so then you came to Suffolk, did you, and became farmer's wife?
I did indeed. I was brought over to Suffolk. My parents thought I was going to somewhere like Timbuktu, you know.
And so how was that then, Gill? I mean, did you embrace the farming life? I love to think that maybe you milked cows.
No, I didn't do well. Before I actually married Wyn, I was let loose once helping to wash one of the bulls ready for a show. That was quite interesting. And once I drove a tractor and trailer full of corn from Mendlesham back to Wickham, and I think Wyn's father was absolutely petrified, but I did get it back safely.
Oh, it sounds amazing. And so you joined this very big established Fenning family. How was it? You can say whatever you like, they'll never know, Gill.
It was a real privilege. Everybody was very welcoming. They must have wondered who on earth this girl was coming from the other side of the country. But no, everybody was great.
Oh,
so there we go.
And what was, let's just go back before we kind of go forward. So what was family life for you pre-marriage? You obviously weren't here in Suffolk, you were elsewhere. Have you got siblings?
Yep. Yes, so as I say, I was brought up in Hereford. I lived there all my life, and I had one older brother, David. He's 7 years older than I am, so I probably was constantly the annoying little sister. I had a very happy childhood. Dad was a teacher, Mum was a nurse, and I love my childhood.
Nice. And so you said that you were at college when you met Wyn, and so that was teacher training, was it?
Yes, it was indeed. Yes.
And so you were following in the footsteps of your dad. I didn't know your dad was a teacher.
Dad, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I always wanted to be a teacher.
Did you? I was going to say, was it always the dream?
Yes, it was. Goodness knows why, but there we go.
And so you came to Suffolk, and I know you taught at Bacton Middle. Was that the first place you taught, or were you teaching other places?
Yes, in those days you applied to the county for a job, and it felt as if the county put a pin in the map, and they offered me a job in Bury St Edmunds at a secondary school, and they offered me a job at Bacton Modern School, but Bacton Secondary Modern. Well, obviously Bacton was much nearer to Wickham, so I said Bacton, please. So it was a secondary modern, and then when I rejoined teaching after the children were born, they were then bringing in the middle system, and so we had to choose as teachers, did we want to go with the middle school or did we want to go on to the high school at Stow Upland?
Right.
And I chose to stay middle.
Okay. And I was trying to work out timings because I went back to middle, and I went there as the middle school system started, which I think was about 77, was it?
Uh, yes, so that would be about that. Yep.
Because I went
Yes.
at the beginning, and I went from primary school at the same time as my older brother, but he went into the third year. I think we went together, but into
Right. Yes.
different years. And so, of course, that's where I first met you, Gill, because you
Yes.
were my French teacher. It's literally taken me so long to be able to call you Gill and not Mrs.
Yes.
Fenning.
Mrs.
In
Fenning.
fact, I was remembering, I don't know if you remember, we had big thick green textbooks for French, I think. And I
Oh,
think
right.
at
Oh, yes,
times,
I can remember.
do you remember them? I
Yes.
can still remember, Jill. I can still remember there was like a little scenario in there. It went like this. Est-ce qu'il y a une lettre pour moi aujourd'hui? Oui, il y en a trois. Il y a aussi un grand paquet. Oh là là, le paquet est lourd. That literally is lifted from the textbook.
Brilliant.
I have
Chris would
no
be very
idea
proud.
why has that stayed with me all that time. I have no idea.
Isn't that lovely?
Did you like that system, the middle school system?
Yes, yes, I did, because obviously I started when it was secondary modern, and it really upset me to see these 11-year-olds. What am I trying to say? Yes, they came at 11, but really they were still children, and they were thrust into this environment with much older children.
Yes.
And I felt they still wanted to go out in the playground and skip and things like that.
Yeah.
And the middle system allowed that to happen. They came as 9-year-olds, and at 11, okay, they were bigger fish in the pond, but they could go outside and play as children.
Yeah.
So I liked it.
I loved it as well. I loved being in it. I loved my kids being in it. I think it was the best of both worlds. I think it still felt like primary, but you'd got all that specialist teaching, and you'd got like cookery rooms and science blocks and drama studios. We did woodwork, and when I started teaching, and the middle school system was still in, but I was teaching in a 2-tier system, and I could see these year sixes and doing things like science, but everything in their classroom, and opening one cupboard that was the science equipment. And I just thought, wow, we had, and my kids were having at the same time, such a different experience of school. It was, it was a sad day when they all went. Oh, sad day. But but you didn't stay with teaching. What was it that led to you?
No, I mean, I did love it, but it did get very stressful. They were bringing in, I suppose, the idea of SATs. Everything was testing.
Yeah.
You know, and there were set phrases that you had to refer to in reports. And I thought, and I got grumpy. And grumpy teachers aren't good for children. And it wasn't good for me. So I thought, no, all three of us, my 2 daughters and I, all left school at the same time. Not the same age, but I was 43. Joe was 18, Maddie was 16, and that was it for school. So there we go.
And so what did you took a completely different path at that time. What did you do?
It was quite scary, because I thought, right, I need to find a job. And you suddenly think, I don't feel qualified to do much else except teach. And my dear friend Margot Beckett, she was working in the job centre, so I worked with her. For a short while I went and worked in Barclays Bank in the stocks and shares department, and that was okay. And then somebody said to me, well, why don't you apply to BT on the graduate employment? And I said, well, I don't have a degree, because in my day when I trained, your teacher training certificate, it wasn't a degree.
Okay.
They hadn't brought that in then.
Right.
And they said, oh no, you know, BT will, they'll accept that. So anyway, I applied, and lo and behold, I got accepted. So I went and worked at Martlesham for BT as an admin manager, and I did that for 11 years.
Right.
I'm very grateful.
Right.
And then when that got even more stressful, I left that one. And so my last job, dear Will Elphick in church said, we're desperately looking for a receptionist, Jill. And I thought, oh, you know, that sounds so nice and calm. Yes, please. So I applied for that and got that, which of course then turned into being PA to the director. But it was
Right.
a happy ending to my work career. And
Sounds
then
wonderful.
retirement.
And I think it's quite what people do now. I think young people are almost encouraged to not necessarily go into something thinking it's going to be their life
No,
career, but just to have
I think
different
those days
paths.
are over.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
that's
done it.
right.
Yeah, brilliant. And you referred to your girls there. So of course, during all of this time, you had your
Yes,
2 girls. So and
yes.
in fact, I remembered because your girls are cousin to Steve, our senior leader. You are Auntie Gill to him, aren't you?
Oh, yes, so I am,
I've
yes.
forgotten this whole connection. You must be able to tell us at least one story about Steve when he was a child or
Oh,
something.
I think naughty stories stay zipped up.
You're such a loyal family, because I asked his sister as well and they're like, no, I can't
No,
say.
well, it's either that or there's so many that I can't pick them.
But tell
He and Judith were so much part of my children's upbringing. It was
Okay.
great.
Lovely,
Yeah.
lovely. Tell us about your girls. What are they up to now? Do they have family?
Right, so, yes, so Jo is, she's just turned 50 and she's married, married to a Frenchman, and they have 2 lovely boys. KO is 18 and Owen is 16.
Fantastic.
So there we go.
Fantastic.
And then Maddie, she is 47 or something like that. And she married a New Zealander, Damon. And so, yeah, she lives over there and she has a boy. Josh is 14 and Bella, my only granddaughter, is 12. So
Wow.
we love them so much.
So you've had this amazing experience of your kids literally being around the world and grandparenting to grandchildren across the world. So how have you done that? How have you maintained good relationships? What have you done?
Relations, it's ever so hard. I mean, obviously we keep in touch as much as we can. We used to go to France a lot. That wasn't hard. Going to New Zealand was a lot more expensive, but on the whole, we did go every year in January or February. Wow. And so actually we had about 4 or 6 weeks with Maddie, so saw a lot of the children. As many of my friends say, you were more involved in the children's upbringing than those people that just see each other for tea or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's it. But I am missing them both now very much in this lockdown time. So
yeah. But I guess those of us who have kind of got more used to doing this sort of communicating, you must have been doing it for years in many ways. Have you? Were you FaceTiming? What were you doing prior to this?
No.
Phone calls.
We started. Do you remember Skype?
Yeah.
So we would try and Skype with New Zealand, but there was a terrible time delay in the conversation.
Right.
So it was such hard work. And quite honestly, the children were little and they don't want to be dragged in front of a screen to talk to grandma and papa.
Right. Yeah. I remember when Zoe was in Zambia, and sometimes I almost wanted to give up on the conversations because of the delay. It was such hard work, and I'd kind of stick with it for her because she needed that contact. But it's hard, isn't it? It's not easy conversation.
It is hard. It is, yes.
Oh, that's so interesting. And of course, over all of this time that you've described, you've been part of local church. Has faith always been something that's been part of life for you? How and when did you decide to become a Christian?
Yes, so faith was very much part of my upbringing. And I remember being part of a very happy church in Hereford. And then I think it was in early teens that it suddenly hits you. This is something I have to make a decision about for myself. I can't just drag along on my parents' coattails, as it were. And so, yes, it was in my early teens that I made the decision that I wanted Jesus to be my saviour. And I can remember I had a great encouragement by going to Covenanter camps in different parts of the country. And they were great. I can vividly remember being in a school in North Wales, and then in the dormitory they liked to pray around in a group, and I'd never prayed out loud. And I can remember the first time I did it, and it felt, wow, I've done it. I've prayed out loud.
Oh, amazing. Great. And so in coming to Suffolk, I know that you were part of a very small Brethren church at
Yes,
Brockford.
that's
So
good. Yeah.
describe what that was like, because I know that was so different to what our experience of church now is. What was
Exactly.
that like,
Yeah.
Brockford?
So different. I think there were about 28 of us or something like that. And quite honestly, their surname was nearly all Fenning. Except it was so exciting when after the Billy Graham crusade hang on, I wrote it down because I had to go and look it up. Was it 83, 84?
Okay.
Um, my friends Margot and Michael Beckett and their 3 children, and their girls were the same age as our girls. They came and joined us at Brockford, so that was really great. But it was
Lovely.
a lovely church, and basically our main outreach was in Monday night work with the children and then the young people afterwards.
Yeah. And Monday nights, I mean, it was called Monday nights, wasn't it? A bit of a legacy, I think. So many people, I've got friends now that I've met sort of at this stage of life that used to go and, just remember doing things with you guys. So yeah, really, really wonderful. And of course, it was when Steve, who's still our senior leader now, married his first wife, Sarah, that they had this vision for moving away from Brockford and setting up something in a neighbouring village that was a much more thriving village where there was much more scope for reaching out into the community. So when they kind of brought this idea to you, what was that reaction at Brockford at that time?
Very exciting, really exciting, because we just knew that if we were going to grow and reach more people, we needed to be in a village situation. Yeah. So, I mean, scary as well, but no, it was really exciting.
Great. And so that is what happened, isn't it? That they began a church. You guys began a church in Mendlesham. You were meeting in was it the school or was it a community building? I can't quite remember.
The community
building there in Mendlesham, and that in fact was the beginnings of what we are now. That was Mendlesham Christian Fellowship at that time, which later moved over to Debenham and became the Forge. But so many people might know of the Forge now, but not necessarily know what that was like, at the beginning. So tell us, what were those early days of Mendlesham Christian Fellowship? What were they like?
Well, it was so funny because, of course, the community centre was large. So we would be having church at the front of the building. And then we'd sort of try and do Sunday children classes at the back of the hall with little screens in between. And of course, everything was new. There wasn't a sound system or anything like that that there is at the Forge. It was the days of the overhead projector and the songs. And dear Ashley Stannard, who's in Croatia now, he was our overhead projector guy. So it was really exciting, and you just waited to see what would happen next. But it was jolly hard work.
I guess there were lots of jobs to do and not many people to do them, I guess.
That's right, yes.
Yeah. And I think I think it was last weekend was the 28th anniversary of you starting, because Steve mentioned it in staff meeting recently.
Right.
28 years ago.
Gosh.
And who would have thought, Gill, that 28 years on, we would have been through that phase of growing and being 3 locations, but then it actually, this whole year has been the most bizarre year of not really being 3 locations, just sort of kind of being one church online. Who would have thought it? How has it been for you, just trying to stay connected with church? I mean, have you enjoyed some of the stuff? How are you feeling about what's going on?
I've really enjoyed the online stuff. I mean, it's great, but let's face it, we as human beings, we need to be able to meet with other people. It's all about fellowship, isn't it? And I've really missed seeing people. But teaching wise, it's been brilliant. It's such practical teaching that helps you every week to live out your Christian life in this really rather odd world.
I've been so proud of us. I think we've adapted and kind of just tried to do things in a new way, but still trying to keep it really relevant and engaging as well. Yeah.
You as staff have done a fantastic job. Well done.
Thank you. And so, Gill, you told us about retiring, and obviously your lives with Wyn. You were doing lots of travelling, seeing the girls in New Zealand and France, which sounds lovely. But I know that this whole time of life has been really touched with sadness as well, when Wyn was diagnosed with cancer and died. I can't remember how long ago now.
It was 2014 when he was first diagnosed.
Okay.
And then for a while he was fine, just got through all the treatment and what have you. And then it was in the summer of 2018 that it all went seriously downhill. But I'm very grateful that when it came to the last few weeks, the hospice hadn't got a space for him, but they offered us hospice at home care, which was absolutely brilliant. The girls came home, and so we were all able to be there with him and say goodbye.
Yeah.
So thanks to the hospice. Yeah.
And it was wonderful to see you all together as a family. Wyn was such an amazing person. I know lots of people know him, and my memories of him are really quite naughty at times, quite mischievous, and very creative. So creative. We do you remember, Gill, when we did a big Christmas play at church? It was the biggest play we'd done, and Wyn had been responsible for the scenery, and it was amazing. We had these revolving doors, and it was just incredible. And on the last night, I think we did maybe 3 nights, and on the last night, Wyn had put things around the scenes, so we were performing and we kept coming across like little notes from Wyn on stage. And I think there's lots of reminders of Wyn all over the place. In fact, at Sizewell Hall, many people will know Sizewell, and isn't he responsible for the carvings, the wooden carvings in the conference hall? They were
on the wall in the conference hall. Yes, that was brilliant.
You must have loads and loads of reminders.
My walls are surrounded with his pictures.
I bet. Sort of I think he used to do lots of practical stuff at church as well, didn't he? He often did lots of things for holiday clubs. I think even when he was very ill last year, I think he'd done the scenery and some backdrops for that, hadn't he, as well? Amazing.
Yes, he did. Yes, and Maddie was over staying, and so she used to go down the farm with him and help him paint. So that was lovely.
Wonderful. Yeah. How did you cope, Gill? That's really, life's so hard at times, isn't it? How did you cope with him being ill, with that diagnosis, with anticipating that life wasn't going to be as you had hoped? How did you cope?
Well, only with God's help. There's no two ways about it. But I had marvellous friends around, and I still do, and everybody just helped out. So there we go. We never know what's going to come around the corner, do we? And
we don't. You've done amazingly well, and I think friends are priceless, aren't they?
Absolutely. They are, absolutely. Yeah.
So you find yourself, Gill, on a new path. What is it that what do you do? How do you keep yourself busy? What's life for you now?
Well, before lockdown, I've always enjoyed volunteering, and that's really what's kept me busy. Okay. So I help with the Village Lunch Club. I should say everything in the past tense. Help with the Village Lunch Club, the Forge Lunch Club, and I was volunteering at the hospital in the A&E department in reception. And I volunteer with Bridget at Dream On, that sort of thing.
Right.
So I really miss all that. Your week is suddenly bare. There's nothing to put on the calendar. People ring you up and say, "Are you free to?" I said, "Yep, free every day."
Yeah, and I guess even like this year for you, even your location geographically, it's not easy to go and wander to somewhere, isn't it? You're quite remote, aren't you? Hard year for you.
We are rather remote, yes. I don't think anybody could manage to live here without a car, because there aren't any buses or anything like that.
No.
So
Yeah.
I mean, we are still allowed to go supermarket shopping, so that's the excitement of my week.
Yeah, yeah, it's really tricky, isn't it? So, you know, I want to ask you what's next for you, Gill. I don't imagine you describing what you're even doing in retirement under normal circumstances. I don't imagine that you're about to kind of sit with a blanket over your knees in the garden watching the birds. What's your plan for what's next in the life and
No,
times of
you'd
Gill
laugh.
Fenning?
I have the blanket over my knees in the lounge to keep me warm. But well, so last year, yes, it's over a year ago now, I've applied to New Zealand to go and move over there. But it's a very, very slow process, and obviously COVID hasn't helped at all.
Yeah.
So I pray very much about that, but I have to accept that it's in God's hands, and perhaps He doesn't mean me to go. I should be jolly disappointed if He does. Says that. But yes, I'd like to go and be near Maddie, not live with them, but be near.
Yeah, that sounds
So,
really, really exciting. And I know when I heard that that was your plan, there was a big bit of me that thought, oh, you not being around. So I wouldn't be being honest if I didn't say that I'm kind of a tinsy bit glad that we've kept you for maybe longer than we should have done. But I also think so exciting for you. I
there we
love that
go.
you're going to have this whole new chapter of life. Yeah, really exciting. It's been so lovely to talk to you. I always like to ask a finally question. Here's my and finally question for you, Gill. If you could take yourself back 50 years and give yourself a piece of advice 50 years ago, what would you have said to yourself?
So 50 years ago, and I'd have been 24. Oh, those years. I think, in fact, yes, I'd be having Joe.
Right.
But what advice would I give myself? I thought about this, and quite honestly, I think I'd just say to myself, look, you just have to trust God for the future. You can't plan every aspect of your life. He knows what's best for me, but you know, sometimes it's jolly hard accepting that. But that would be my advice. So there we go.
That's wonderful. That's just what I need to hear right now as well, Gill. Gill, you are wonderful. You are like a fixture and fitting of our church. You kind of seem to have been around as long as I can remember, and I know you are a huge, huge blessing to so many people. You've been inspirational in these last few years as well, and yeah, we love you very much. We value you hugely, and I'm really grateful that you've chatted to me and shared your story with me this afternoon. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Helen. Well done, you, and bless you.
Oh, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.